I'm so glad today that I have Paul Gampe from DCConnect, the CTO from DCConnect, to come to interview with me today.
My name is Paul Gampe. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for DCConnect. Really excited to be here today to talk about the impact of AI, software-defined networking with our great partner, DCConnect.
DCConnect works with a lot of NAS and AI service and use a lot of API. So can you elaborate the technological advancement of the SDN within DCConnect?
I think if we were to reflect on the history of software-defined networking, coming from the early days of Stanford University, there was this concept that we would be able to use software-defined networking to govern inside the data center, so very much focused on the local area network problem. What's happened since then, though, is that the majority of value actually exists outside the data center. You and I are most likely using cloud. Many of our customers are using cloud. So the demand domain for SDN moved to wide area networking. So if anything that's really transpired from my perspective over the last decade is the move from SDN adding value inside the data center to SDN adding value outside the data center. And so for DCConnect, what that has meant is our API, which we expose to our partners such as DCConnect and to others, is the ability to orchestrate connectivity to hyperscalers, to SaaS applications, infrastructures and others. When we first perceived of software-defined networking, it was connecting a virtual machine in a data center to a virtual machine in a data center. And that use case has already been solved by the cloud providers. Now we're providing on-ramps into those cloud providers.
Okay. So Paul, you mentioned API. API is very important and fundamental for us to work together. So in terms of API, how do you see API can benefit the whole interworking between partners like DCConnect? And how does it benefit the customer or from telecom industry?
Yeah, so when the enterprise is looking to gain value from accessing compute and storage, we would all now perceive that we can start a virtual machine, we can open an S3 bucket, we can gain access to these types of compute and storage capabilities via an API using Terraform or other applications as simple as writing a piece of code and calling it, right? What's lagged for us as an industry is providing that the network as a service. And so it's through partnerships like ours where we can deliver to an end enterprise our entire inventory of network. We perceive the hyperscaler, really what they're making available to us with that API is an inventory of compute, an inventory of storage, but because it's not a walled garden, but because it exists inside their data center, there isn't really the concept of what would be taken, the chain of connectivity that's required to get to that location. So networks are geocentric, and so for an enterprise in one geography to get to compute and storage in another geography, often there will need to be a collaboration between connectivity providers to make that happen. And I think our API integration example, which is bilateral, proves that we can use APIs to do inventory availability and service deployment, provisioning, fully automatically through that collaboration.
Yes, I think one thing I would like to add is we see more and more players actually API enabled now, so it makes us to do business with them more easily, right?
Yeah.
Right. So now move to the big question of the day, the AI, right? We heard about AI so many times. So what actually AI mean to you? What does it mean to DCConnect? Can you elaborate that and give us some insight?
Yeah, so we're seeing AI, particularly generative AI, having three significant impacts for DCConnect. The first and most obvious is that large language models are simply very large data sets. And so one would anticipate that over time, it is unlikely that you or I would want to contribute all of our intellectual property, our code and our knowledge to a public language model. We'll probably want to keep that private, right? So then you have to think through, okay, so enterprises like ours will want to be able to build large language models. We'll want to keep them private and we'll want to keep them separated from large language models. But we'll need to be able to do things to that large language model, such as learning, inference, and that requires a significant amount of specialized compute capability. Everybody wishes they were an NVIDIA shareholder, right?
Yeah.
GPUs have become very rare. So for the average enterprise, building the type of compute infrastructure required to do the type of generative AI workloads is pretty low. It's unlikely many enterprises will be able to build that type of infrastructure. So again, they're likely to gain access to that type of compute using a hyperscaler. And so for Console Connect, what that means is we see significant growth. In fact, we already have an AI category inside our meeting place, specifically dedicated to the companies that provide these generative AI services, and a very high growth rate for us as well. So to summarize, the first opportunity we see is that AI, and particularly generative AI, are large data sets that the enterprise are likely to use or gain access to over forms of private connectivity. So it's a growth opportunity for us as providers of network automated services. The second opportunity is the obvious case of our typical persona that we perceive now is a very sophisticated DevOps engineer or a network engineer who's developed coding, and they're trying to provision services in real time. And so, where do I have capacity? Do you provide MaxSec on this 1 gig in this location? And so, can we use generative AI as producers of knowledge so that we can quickly answer questions that a developer can see in our platform may be able to gain answers quickly? It's all about the speed of code. So we think we can use generative AI to provide a bit of customer experience and answer questions as well. And then finally, the part that is most probably of interest to investment communities, we have access to very large data sets, historical utilization patterns. As you may know, Console Connect is an integration of the existing PCCW global network and the Console Connect platform. One of the advantages of that integration is that we operate AS3491, top 10, tier 1, settlement free peering networking, which allows us to offer things like internet on demand, but also allows us to build very large data sets about utilization patterns. Coming right back to most companies will want to keep some of their proprietary information inside large language models. We think we have a significant amount of value in our proprietary data to do predictive analytics about what demand patterns may look like in the future. If you're intending to lay subsea cable systems which take 3 to 5 years to build, it would be great to have very strong analytical data to confirm that this part or this particular cable system is going to generate the return on investment that you're investing in.
Great. Thank you, Paul, today for sharing those insights with us. Right, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us, Paul. Thank you
very much.